Hey, I'm starting on the Copic work for a Princess Leia commission that I've been slowly chipping away at. I have many more that I need to finish. I'm sorry to everybody who's waiting on commissions from me. So many. But you can follow my work here as I'm working on getting it ready, the final bits ready for it to be colored. And so that's what I'm going to be working on now. So I have a couple little bits of ink to finish, and then I will go on to the Copic colors. So as soon as I'm done with putting down the final inks on it and just getting the last bits on there, then I'll go through and erase all of my pencil lines. I'm going to leave the symbol in the back in pencil, not in ink, but the rest I will be finishing up the inking and then erasing my pencil lines. And sometimes these pens need to get going a little bit, so I just scribble on the side, not on the actual artwork. Just going to make that base line a little bit thicker. Oh, thank you, Michael. Okay, so I really didn't have much in the way of inking that I needed to finish. I'm just going to work on something on her belt here. I'm trying to make sure that you guys can see what I'm working on. Hopefully that I don't end up going off the screen at any point. If I do, just yell at me. All right. So time to erase it. This is my favorite eraser, and I use it when I really need to get everything clean. This is my eraser to go. It's my go-to eraser. Oh, hi Kylie, I'm glad you made it to a live video. Yay! Thankfully, the pens that I work with and the paper that I have are good. I really love these Faber-Castell Eco Pigment pens. They're my favorite. And so those I use, oops, I need to plug in my phone. Those I use for all of my inking, and they are amazing. Sorry about the shaking of the camera, everyone. I just had to plug in my phone. All right. So, I'm going to carry on with erasing. Good evening, Dan. Happy New Year to you too. I hope everyone's had a great start to 2018. All right, it's going to squeak for quite a bit while I'm erasing everything. But since her outfit is white, I definitely need it to be clean and get all the pencil lines off. Now I know where her arm is right here, so we'll see a little bit of shadow from the form of her arm, but I'm aware of where that is, so I'm just erasing the pencil lines. Yeah, Eco Pigment pens, Kylie, are really, they're really good. I use the Faber-Castell Eco Pigments. I use the Copic multi-liners that are also really good, and I also have the Pitt pens, any of which are fine. Right now, the Faber-Castell I'm really enjoying. The multi-liners are also super good, but my art store has more variety of these at the moment. So I've been getting these ones, and the nice thing about them is that the tips at the end don't get as funky as fast as the Pitt pens do, which are both by Faber-Castell. I just imagine the Eco Pigments are maybe their higher end ones, and they do cost more. Yes, another live video. I'll do more once the kids are back in school. They go back on Monday. So right now they're all happy, so I'm getting on Facebook Live, but as soon as I'm done, we'll go play Star Wars Monopoly, which we are slowly working through. And my youngest, who's 7, has cleaned out the bank. That guy has made all the money, and I am almost broke, so I'm most certainly going to lose. Okay, this is just a Sumi brush. It just happened to be a brush I had on hand that didn't have any paint in it already, so I'm using it to brush away my eraser shavings. I don't like using my hand. It smudges, it gets the, minute amounts of hand oil onto, or skin oil or whatever, onto the paper. I just want to keep the paper as pure as possible. And so now I can see where I missed some eraser spots, so I'm just going in, getting it as clean as I can. Hey, Desiree! Tyler is an Imperial Republic credits. God, I'm the worst. I'll have to show it to you. It's like an old Star Wars Monopoly board game that was my husband's when he was a kid. So it's like, I checked it, it was printed in 1997. So my husband and kids are going to want to shoot me for not knowing what proper credits it is. Thank you, Anne. I hope you enjoy the process of this one. Hey, Nick. I'm glad you just got home. And then it's warmer. My God, this week has been intense, huh? Here in Calgary, it's been really, really cold. And like every year, our New Year's party, what we do is we take the kids sledding, and we go every year. We've done it for the last six years, I think, since our youngest was old enough. Well, hardly old enough to stay up till midnight, but either way, it's a special time of year. So we always take the kids on a midnight sled in this one hill that has good light and stuff. So we always go sledding, and it's freezing, but endurable. But this year, oh my God, it was so cold you couldn't be outside. It was like deathly cold. So we had a Nerf battle in our house for New Year's, which was really fun. I hope everybody else had a ton of fun doing whatever it is you do on New Year's. Yeah, right? You're so right, Nick. Okay, there we go. It is cleaned up. All right, I will be the first one to admit that likenesses are not my forte, so I didn't even try. This is for a friend of mine, and he named his daughter Leia, so I made her look young and, you know, almost more like a, I don't know, older teenage Leia. Oh, Anne, I'm so sorry. Weep. But I did start something new. I have a print of the month. And so even though that sale is over, we'll always do more sales. And check out the print of the month on my website. Oh, yeah, Kylie, I heard that it was like 40 degrees, like plus 40 in Australia. Is that true? Oh, yay, thank you. I'm glad you're going to get the Harley. She's only available for January, so definitely if you want to grab her, you got to snag her now. Okay. Now, this is the one thing I find kind of annoying about working with rulers. They leave, when I ink right here and then I move the ruler, it leaves a little bit of a blotchy bit. Ah, bothers me. I use a type of paper that I get from my printer. So I am cheating a little bit, but it's my local printer here in Calgary, and they have this paper that is called Cougar Super Smooth, and it's 110-pound cover paper. So it's pretty thick cardstock. And I really like it because it's absorbent, but not too absorbent, so I can work with the Copics. It doesn't seem like the ink smears and stuff like that. Okay. Let's see. I'm going to start with her skin this time, since the last other ones that I've done, I didn't really finish the skin. So I'm going to take out my trusty colors that I love. And I have my Copic markers right next to me here. All right, so if I can show you, I don't know if I have enough space to show everybody like this, but yeah, these are the colors that I like to use. So for the most part, I fill everything at the beginning with E41, then I move into E42, etc., etc. Okay, so again, I'm starting with E41. As far as lighting goes, I think I'm going to have the light coming from this side, and the shadows will be cast over here. So I usually try to determine that before I get started. I need my dab pad. Where is it? Had to get my trusty dab pad, where I dab for any excess ink before I place it on the paper. Oh, that's so awesome, Anne. Thank you for buying Harley for your birthday, and happy birthday. That's awesome. Okay. So there's no particular right or wrong in my opinion as far as which brush to use. For those of you who've seen my videos before, you're well aware, but there is a chisel tip on one side and a brush tip on the other. It is personal preference that I use the chisel tip. And I'm just going to fill in the whole section. Now I'm going to try to stop on this side of her face to start with and not fill in everything, but we'll have to see. I may just go ahead and fill it all. It's just that Copic tends to dry really quickly, so I have to, yeah, I'm just going to fill it all. Alright, so here I'm going to give her, she does have very high cheekbones, so I'm going to give her those. And I'm just going over every single spot and adding more on the sides because it would have a shadow from her bun, and then leaving it lighter in other spots. Over here it's going to be darker, so I'm really just trying to get down all the colors as quickly as I possibly can. Well, not all the colors, but this color and all the shade as quickly as I can. Now I want to leave a good highlight right here by her nose, because that's the part that will be catching the light the most. But again, the face is the hardest part. You have to really get the main shadows down as fast as you can, or everything starts to dry and then you end up with some really nasty looking spots. So I'm not going to look up and see the comments for a minute just while I'm trying to get down the colors here. So I'm trying to make sure that blends in up there. So her cheekbone right there is going to be actually picking up the most light, which is why I'm going in that direction. I'm kind of going upward into her face a little bit, so that the lightest part where my brush is like picking up off the page doesn't have as much color in it, and I'm slowly picking it up. Same here, this part would have more shadow, so I can angle it up into the parts of her forehead that would have less shadow, and I can go in that direction, thus making it lighter up there and catching the light. Oops, sorry everyone, I was taking it down too low. There we go. Sorry. I'm sorry guys, I'm so sorry. I started pulling it more where I could see it. Okay, so I hope you can see. I didn't see the comments, I'm so sorry. Here we go. Can you see it now? I'm so used to working with the paper a lot closer to my face, and so I'll just start doing that. Yell at me always. Okay. There we go. Or is there a good color range of Copics to start with? I tend to recommend that you actually start with the grays. Because the grays, there's a lot of different tones in the gray. You could get the warm grays that they have like a bit more of a brown hue to them. Like if you find yourself buying a gray pair of pants or a gray top or sweater or whatever, if you wear it with like blue jeans, all of a sudden you'll see that your gray, supposedly very gray, monotone top actually has a bit of a green hue to it or something like that, or it looks more blue when you see it next to a brown or whatever. And so that's kind of how the toner, the cool, and the warm grays work in Copic. They have a bit of a tone to them. So the warm grays work really well as a skin tone when you're just getting started. Just use warm gray. And then if you're trying to do something like ice or water or anything that's blue toned, like I'm going to use cool gray for her outfit to make it white, but almost look more like it's a cold white, thus having a bluish hue to it. And that's why I would use the cool grays. So my recommendation is that you start out with the grays. You can use warm, cool, and toner, which is pretty much a basic flat gray. A Lulu fail story in there, most likely. Okay, here we go. This is E42. It's a little blurry in the camera, sorry about that, but I'm using E42, which is my next shade. Yes, and there is a Lulu story there. I got myself a Lululemon sweater that I really wanted, and I thought it was like a light gray. And then I brought it home and realized it was green, or greenish gray, and I'm a little sad about that. Okay, so this is with E42. It's the next shade down. Now, Copic always tends to dry lighter than it actually looks when you're working on it. So you kind of have to color darker than you want it to look, and then it'll turn out great, which makes it a little complicated. Okay, so this is the shadow under her nose. And there's the Cupid's bow there, so I have to leave a little bit of room for that, so that it's clearly there. And then what I'm doing is I'm taking the E41 again, and I'm kind of using it to mix back into itself. So I'm going back over the E41 with more E41 to get the shade to mix and blend. Okay, she's younger, so I'm going to give her a little bit more of a rounded nose. Color of Copic is most unforgiving? I would have to say purple. But that could just be my opinion. I have had a really hard time getting purples in. But the thing that's really fun about purple, and I know that this is kind of not, I guess I answered your question, and now I'm just going to ramble on about the Copic topic. But with that Harley that is the print of the month this month, there's something really fun you can do with the lighter purples, in that Harley Quinn has pale, pearly white skin, right? And I like to add in a little bit of tone from something just to give her a little bit more of a like human look, that she's not so white. So in a lot of the Harleys that I've been working on lately, and these are her, like the Suicide Squad Harleys, for instance, I add in some really light purple into her skin tone. And so it still keeps that cool look, but it warms it up just a touch, just to give her a little bit more of a human look. And I really like doing that. So you'll see in a lot of the Harleys that I work on, she has quite a bit of purple in her, because I add that into her skin. Can you guys see still? Thanks, Robs. Thanks for dropping in, Kat. All right, so now I'm going on to the side of her face that actually is getting more light in it. And I'm putting in her cheekbones. Now there will be a decent amount of shadow coming from the hair buttons. And I'm just blending it. So I'm using the E42 for the dark parts, and then I'm blending it with the E41 to get it to mesh into the rest of her skin. So again, I'm blending this in. And as you can see, I'm holding them in their lids in between my fingers, and then I kind of just know which one is where, and I switch them out so that I can kind of move quickly and on the fly. Yeah, I like using colored pencil too, and it is really nice and more forgiving than Copics for sure. But the way that Copics can blend, of course, is a lot more fun. So, you know, it's always one of those tricky things to like figure it out. Sometimes I do a mixture of the two. Like I'll probably put a little bit of colored pencil for her blush. You build with paint and resin model kits. That's amazing. I don't know how to do that. Thank you, Dawn. It's so nice to have you here. Okay. Oh, that helped. It just softened her nose up a little bit. Happy New Year to you too, Robs. Thank you for stopping by. All right, so now I'm going to go on to E43 for just a couple spots in the harsher shadows. Because now I'm trying to show actual shadow cast from her hair. And that would be in a couple spots. Hi, John, Starla. I'm using a type of paper that I get from my local printer. It's called it's called Cougar Super Smooth. But I also do really like the Copic Express It paper. That stuff is really good. And I use that too sometimes. I just don't have a ton of it. So I'm using E43 to just give her a little bit more color around her eyes, help them pop a little bit more. And I'm also putting E43 in her eyebrows. I might actually go a little darker for her eyebrows. Of course, most of it's in black, but I did leave it kind of scratchy so that it looks a little bit more natural, and also her hair is brown, so she wouldn't have like flat black eyebrows. Oh, you're right, I need to do the post-it notes. Lol. Yeah, Copic Express It paper is incredible. All right, this is E31. It's a little bit more red than the 40s that I was using. All right. Oh my God, I completely forgot to color her neck and her hand, so I'll do that now. Now, obviously her head and her skull are making a harsher shadow on her neck, so I'm gonna jump straight to E43 after putting down the basics of E41. Now I might actually let this color dry for a little while and then come back and put more on, and then it'll take the color a little bit better and it'll get darker. Because otherwise it'll just keep blending and I'll keep saturating the paper. Now here I want her knuckles to really look like they're standing out. So I'm going to leave some of those spots highlighted a little bit, just to show the form of her hand. Just like that. And then there's an indentation in here between the thumb and the forefinger, so I'll work on that indentation. So I'm still just using E41, but the more I go over it, the more it saturates the paper and gets a little darker. All right, now I'm back to E42. Oh, thank you, Robert. I'll have to see what I'm gonna do with it when it's done. So I'm going and putting a little bit of darker around her wrist because it indents and then goes to her hand, and then of course there's her forearm muscles, which again would come forward a little bit and thus catch the light a little bit more, which is why I'm leaving them lighter. Now I'm just blending it all in together, making sure there's as few harsh lines as possible. And then I'm leaving a little bit of an underlight right there. Okay. Bring it to Emerald City. I'm not going to be in Emerald City this year. Weep. Okay, so this is a shadow cast from her cloak. And again, she would need a harsh shadow right here under the gun. Right there. Right here. And I'm going to put more shadow under her neck. Sometimes I put the harsher shadows too soon, and like the Copic around this area was still too wet, so then the E43 started bleeding in, which is fine. It just makes it look more shadowed and part of her skin, as opposed to an actual shadow with a start and stop point from this part of her bun. So I usually end up needing to go back. Happy New Year's to all of you. Okay, and again, under her nose, I think it needs to have a bit more shadow. And on the bridge of her nose here. Hey, Scott. And I'm going to work on her mouth right now because I know that it looks so weird that you've got almost the whole face done and then the mouth is all white. So let's go on to the mouth now. All right, now. Princess Leia is not trying to make any kind of gigantic makeup statements, so I will keep it natural looking. And for natural lips, I use E11 and E13 for any dark spots, and sometimes I even just start it out with the lighter skin tone. So I'll do that right now, and then I'll add in the peach colors after. How long does it take? You know, I have a hard time answering that question, to be perfectly honest, because sometimes a piece will just go so fast and then other pieces take me forever. And, you know, I'm probably fighting myself and, you know, getting too all up in my own head about it. But I try to do one of these a day at a show, which I know is not very fast, but I also don't want to just have everyone come by my table and see the top of my head. And when I'm working, I have a pretty aggressive bitch face. So I try to make sure that I look up very often and stop and say hello to everybody and sign things. Here's my dab pad, so I'm working with that on the side. I try to make sure I stop and sign things. At home, if I actually worked on it for real, I would hope that I could get a few more done. Let's see how fast this one goes. But yeah, saying exactly how long something takes me is like the hardest thing in the world. Okay, so this is E11, and it's actually technically Copic skin tones. I just have a personal preference for something not quite so pink for skin tone. And that's literally just my personal preference. It doesn't have to be what anybody else does. I know a lot of artists that actually use the E11 in their skin tone set. I use it as lipstick. Or it's really great for mixing in with yellows to make a really nice gold. And that's what I use it for. Not so much for actual skin tone. Okay, my marker is a little full, so I have to be careful. So that's why I have my my dab pad on the side. It's just an absorbent paper towel, and I use that to dab off any excess if I feel like the marker is too full, which sometimes it's really easy to overfill a Copic marker, and I do it all the time. So this makes it a little easier and safer if I have something on the side. Otherwise, it just goes all over the paper and can potentially ruin the piece you're working on, which has happened to me. I'm going between E13 and E11 right now, and E41. Alright, now it's still lacking some really good dark shadows in there, so I'm going to see what other color to use for that. Let's try E33. Just for in like the corners of her mouth and down the center. Nope, still need to go darker. All right, I'm going to use E23. It's kind of one of my favorite browns, just to do the shadows and help it stand out a little bit. That's something I've been noticing just from looking at pictures of real life or just observing people while I'm talking to them. The one thing that I don't really do enough in my coloring is actually show proper shadow and get a little bolder with, you know, stuff is under harsh shadow. You're surrounded by so many things in your environment, and they cast a shadow or a highlight or all those things. And the thing that helps make things look more real and more natural, or at least more believable at first glance to the human eye, is proper shade and light. And so that's really what I'm trying to work on these days. Okay, so now I'm just blending it in a little teeny weeny bit. Alright, just going to do the final last little blend right here with E11. Now lips aren't like perfectly smooth, so I try to leave a little bit of texture on them and make that, add in that believability, or at least try to, in the lips. So there we go. Okay, now let's work on the eyes. So with the eyes, I use a cold gray. I usually use C1 or C0, which is one of the lighter ones. So it goes, oops, sorry, I bumped the case. Okay, so the way that the gray tones go is that it starts from 00 and goes all the way till 10, and everything gets darker by number. So, you know, I'll show you a C9 right here is much darker than, say, a C6, if you can see the difference in gray. And so I start with the lightest, and that is, there's a 00 as well, but for here I'm going to use the C0 to just get the basics of the shape of her eye in there, because of course it's not going to be flat white. And then her eyelids, her shadows, her eyelashes, the environment creates more shadow and highlight on the eye. Have you ever used a masking fluid before or over the Copics when they dry? You know what? I've never used a masking fluid. I have no idea. However, the one thing that I've found, the one thing that I've found that works really well with Copics, if you've colored everything but you want to make some adjustments, for starters, you can use colored pencil. The other thing that I use frequently is watercolor. But again, then you could end up with messing up the paper situation. So it's sort of a catch-22 there. But if you have paper that can handle watercolor, watercolor does not seem to affect the Copic. And you can go over it and add tone, for instance. Like, you know, if I wanted to, I could put her blush on her face and it would look fine. It wouldn't cause any, like, weird halos and stuff like that when adding watercolor. Okay, time to do her eyes. So, her eyes are pretty dark brown. So let's start out with an E23 because they do catch light, and I want to make sure that it's showing the light. One second, everybody. All right. You mean more like adding details? Oh, I see. I'm sorry. I do use a type of tape, yes. And I use, or I'll just like actually stick a bunch of Post-it tabs all over the place. But no, I use this stuff called architect's tape, which I imagine is the same basic thing as another type of masking tape. And that I found works really, really well. I get it at my local art store. It is like painter's tape, but it doesn't have as much tack to it. It's almost more like a Post-it tape. And yeah, I use that frequently in my commissions and stuff to keep places I'm trying to preserve. All right, so I'm gonna add in some darker areas now at the top of her eye because that's where the shadow would be. Can you see? Yes, you can see. Oh yay, I'm glad I'm drawing your favorite character. Yay! As far as her likeness, I am not trying to make it look like Carrie Fisher. I adore Carrie Fisher, but I am not the best at likenesses, so I'm going for a younger Princess Leia because I'm drawing this for a friend whose daughter is named Leia, and so I'm kind of trying to make her look a little younger too. All right, and I want her eyes to just be picking up some light. So let's try something. I don't know if this is gonna work, and if it doesn't work, I can just cover it after. This is called Pale Sepia. It's YR24. Adding in a little bit of gold as if there's a light coming somewhere. Now in the end, I'm going to go over all of this with, I'll use a gel pen to add the highlights on top. So hopefully once it's done, it should all mesh together, even though it looks all kind of flecky right now. Alright, now I'm going to go over the yellow that I put down just to tone it down a tiny bit with a little bit more brown. Because yeah, that yellow was too much. So, tried it, ditched it, I'm gonna fix it. Alright, this is T10, and I'm just doing it to add a little bit more dark back in right there. Alright, and this is a jelly roll. For some reason I'm not able to see the comments. This is really weird. Sorry everybody. Let's see if I can figure this out. But this is a jelly roll pen. So I will be using the Sakura jelly roll to add in some highlight for her eyes. Okay. Will I be at the Albuquerque Comic-Con? No, I'm not going to be in Albuquerque or in Denver this year. I'm so sorry. Okay. All right. So I'm adding in some highlights on her eye. And I like them when they go over the iris, like that. All right, there we go. All right, and then what usually happens is at the end, I need to go over that particular spot on her eye because I've gone over it with Copic so much, it tends to pull at some of the black, and so it's hard to differentiate where the eye begins and the lashes start and all of that, so I usually just go in and add a little bit more black on the top again, just to show where her eye is. Tony, I am pretty sure I'm going to be at Dallas, Fan Expo Dallas this year in April. I'm working on finalizing my convention schedule, but if you're around the Dallas Con, definitely come by. Sorry guys, I'm really having a hard time figuring out my video and why it won't let me see all of your comments. So I'm having a hard time seeing what everyone is asking. Okay, well, back to drawing. Sometimes my pens need a second to like get going again, so I have to scribble on the side on my board or something to get them going again. They like really just don't want to work today. Okay, now what I do is I switch to colored pencil just for one little spot. Yes, I am having technical problems. I can't figure it out. Yolanda! All right, so I'm using a Caran d'Ache Aquarelle Museum Aquarelle. And I don't know why they're museum ones, but they are aquarelle, which is what I wanted, which means that they can also be watercolor. But for what I use them here, I am using it to add some blush. Now I'm going super lightly. And of course, the human face, especially a girl's face, has a lot more rouge in it, or, you know, it's not fully flat tan like that. So I tend to add a little bit of blush in different places just to try to warm up her face a little bit. So I put a little bit on her nose, a little bit over her eyes. A little bit in her chin. Okay. Thank you, Yolanda. We had a great Christmas. I hope you and your family did as well. So this is my little pen set. I can zoom out a little bit so you can see it. I just grabbed a few different colors, and then this is the one that I was using. And it's really great for traveling to shows. I don't need a ton of colors when I go, but this is just a perfect little set. And I just got the case at blickart.com. They are awesome for coloring and all other art-related needs. And no, that was not a sponsored I wasn't sponsored to say that. I just have a little bit of an art supply purchase problem. I buy too much. All right, let's go on to her hair. I actually might finish this all in one shot. That'll be awesome. Yes, the video will be saved. Actually, Robbie and everybody, I just set up a YouTube account. So all of these will be saved, and you can either watch them again here on Facebook, or you can go to Dawn, I guess just search Dawn McTeigue on YouTube, or I'll post a link to it once I start posting the videos there so that you can grab them. Okay, let us begin on the hair. Whoop, whoop. All right, I am going to pull out my trusty cheat sheet. Where's my little one? Hold please, everybody. I'm looking for my hex chart. Aha! I just got a new desk, which I'm really loving, but I always forget where I put everything in my drawers. This is my hex chart. It is mine precious. And I use this to keep track of the colors that I have, which as you can see, there are so many more to get. And now I can know which color to choose for her hair. So I know that I need to use a brown, but I have a fair few browns and I don't want to have to just dab it on the side to try to figure out which brown I want to use. So this helps me, and it's basically like an answer key to working with Copic, so I highly recommend it. You can get this at, what does it say? sandylnock.com. See, you can see it right there. I think it costs $5 to download it, and then you can have your own copy. And you just fill it with, it's a blank sheet, and then you fill it with the Copics that you have. And I put it in a trusty top loader so that it doesn't get messed up. See, I filled up a marker right over it, and I need to clean off my thing. Art mess. Okay, so I have this in front of me so that I can choose which color, which markers to use for her hair. So that's what I'm going to be deciding right now. So, time to get going. I always start with the lightest tone that I'm going to be working with for this, as you can see the colors. It's weird how marker doesn't pick up very nicely for a while, but I'll show you guys a picture at the end when I'm done. But for now, I'm going to just start, and I'm going to be using, I'm going to start with E23. The color I had chosen was not right. This is like my trusty brown. I love this one. And so this is what I'm going to start with. And again, I always use the brush tip, not for any other reason than personal preference. Ooh, Kylie, I'm glad you got the hex chart. I'm sorry you had to wait. Oh my god, having to wait is so very difficult. I have zero patience. All right, here we go. Time to begin. Now this is of course all curled hair, well, twisted hair in a bun. So I need to make sure, even if I'm filling this whole thing in color, I still want to make sure that my brush lines and even the highly imperceptible brush strokes are actually following the direction of the hair. Otherwise, it kind of confuses your eye and it looks very shoddy. So I'm going to be filling it and trying to go in the direction that her hair would be in this bun. It's a Star Wars character, David. Oh my god, I'm on the big screen. Ah! No! At least it's not my face. So, I'm fine with that. And hi to Kylie's daughter. Alright. Now I don't want to get too detailed with her hair and trying to, I don't know, detail it out too much, make it look too perfect. I think sometimes I go too far in that and I kind of kill it. When actually what I really enjoy is the more unfinal looking art. you know, where there's some white spots, there's some not. It's just, it's a lot more fluid, and that I really love. So I'm trying to kind of pull myself out of the like, oh my God, everything has to be absolutely perfect and I have to brush in every hairline and make it all look completely realistic down to the last little tiny hairline. So I'm trying to get it a little bit more fluid than I have been. All right, so I was using E23. I'm going to show you guys the text chart again. And I need to start putting in the shadows. So for shadows, I'm not liking any of those, but okay, maybe I'll use the E29. Yeah, I'll probably just use the E29 and be careful, not fill it too much. Well, yeah, of course she wants you to watch them, David. They're so fun. You gotta watch them. David, you gotta watch them. That's right. I agree, Nick. All right, I think that E29 was a decent call. Yay me! Because again, I'm just trying to show the darker shadows. I'll go back over it with the E23 and add in a little bit of a like mid-tone almost, because the E23 is going to be picking up a little bit of the E29. I hope I'm not sounding like I'm just speaking in some weird code language, but it's the Copic marker colors, just so everybody knows they all have a color code, and that's what I'm talking about. About stuff like that. All right, so there would be some, again, some more shadows here because the light I'm kind of bringing from this direction, and as such, these parts would not be touching the light, and I am showing them in deeper shadow. So even though it's looking darker, it's literally just the same marker going over itself and basically adding another layer of color, and it almost looks like a shadow in there when really it's just the same color over the other color, over the same color, if that makes sense. Yeah, Larry, it is kind of like the smudge guard. What these are is I got myself some, the Lululemon ones. I'm a little bit of a Lululemon freak. I love it. And so these are their like arm sleeve thingies. And I think they're running sleeves, but they're great for drawing. So I always use some sort of fingerless glove, and the last pair I had, I like used them to a pulp. And so these are my new pair. Squeak! I do have a smudge guard that I use with the Cintiq, the one that just goes over the last two fingers, like your pinky and your ring finger. I have one of those too that I use with the Cintiq, but I really like these. Oh yeah, Yolanda definitely gets some sleeves. You're right, I need to do sticky notes. I do. Next time I'll have Post-its right next to me so that I can put the comments, the most frequently asked questions. reminder to me. Sorry. And actually that's a reminder that I need to go. I have to go pick up my car. So I'm so sorry, you guys. I'm gonna have to leave, but I'll pick this up maybe again tomorrow, and we can finish off the rest of it. Thank you all so much for hanging out for this. I will, the stuff that takes the longest is the skin. But I will, I'll show the rest tomorrow, and then we can have see the final piece, because I want to color in the whole symbol in the back, and it'll be super fun. Thank you all so much for sticking around with me for a while. I love you guys. Big hearts. Happy New Year, and I'll see you again tomorrow, hopefully for another one. Yeah, live long and prosper. Bye-bye, everybody. Have a good night.